What if I told you that the most important events in our world, in all of history, and even in your own life are fundamentally unpredictable? Not just, a little hard to guess, but completely and totally impossible to foresee. Today, we are diving deep into Nassim Nicholas Taleb's game-changing idea of the Black Swan. And trust me, it's a concept that will completely change how you look at pretty much everything.
Let's kick things off with a quote that really gets right to the heart of it. Taleb writes, "We glorify those who left their names in history books at the expense of those contributors about whom our books are silent." So, what's he really saying here? He's pointing to this giant blind spot we all have. We only celebrate the heroes we can see, the people who react to big events. But what about the heroes we never see, the ones whose actions prevent disasters from ever happening in the first place? That's the mystery we're going to unravel today.
And to get our heads around this huge idea, we're not going to start with some complex economic model or a dense history lesson. Nope, we're going to start with something way simpler. This is the story of a turkey.
Now don't be fooled, this isn't just a simple barnyard story. It's actually a perfect little parable that holds the key to a really profound and, frankly, dangerous flaw in how we all think.
Okay, so picture this. You are this turkey. On day 1, a friendly human shows up with a bucket of food. Awesome, life is pretty good. By day 100, you've spotted a very clear pattern. Every single day, like clockwork, that human comes and feeds you. Our turkey, you see, is a pretty good scientist. He's collecting data. So by day 500, his confidence is through the roof. The evidence is overwhelming, right? Every single observation has confirmed his theory. Humans are friends, they're protectors. He feels safer and more certain about the future than ever before in his life. And then comes day 1001, Thanksgiving. That sudden, catastrophic, world-shattering event, that complete reversal of everything the turkey thought he knew for a fact, that right there is a perfect illustration of what Taleb calls a black swan. So what exactly is a black swan? Well, Taleb says it has 3 specific ingredients. First, it's a total rarity. It's an outlier, something that lies completely outside of our normal expectations. For our turkey, Thanksgiving was completely off the charts based on his 1,000 days of data. Second, it carries an extreme impact. For the turkey, well, it doesn't get much more extreme than that. And third, and this is the really sneaky part, after it happens, we all cook up stories that make it seem like it was predictable all along. We say, oh, of course, the farmer was just fattening him up for the feast. And it's this illusion, this hindsight bias, that keeps us from learning the real lesson. Okay, so where do these black swans even come from? Taleb says we need to get that we're basically living in 2 totally different worlds of randomness. On the left, you've got Mediocristan. This place is safe, it's predictable. Think about something like human height. If you get 1,000 people in a room and then add the tallest person in the world, the average height barely moves. Averages rule here. But then, on the right, you step into a whole other reality. Extremistan. This place is wild, it's unpredictable, and a single outlier can change the whole picture. Think about wealth. One Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk has more money than hundreds of thousands of other people combined. Black swans are born in Extremistan. The problem is, we are constantly making plans and predictions as if we live in safe, boring old Mediocristan.
So, if our world is really run by the crazy rules of Extremistan, why do we keep getting surprised? Why are we all, in one way or another, just like that turkey? Well, the problem isn't just out there in the world. A huge part of it is in here, inside our own heads. Seriously, just take a second and be really honest with yourself. Think about the big events in history. The internet showing up, the 2008 financial crisis, a global pandemic. Did anyone really predict those? Or even think about your own life, how you met your partner, that unexpected job offer, that random conversation that changed everything. How many of those major life events did you have neatly written down in a 5-year plan? The truth is, our lives are shaped by these massive, unexpected twists and turns. And one of the biggest culprits for our blindness is something Taleb calls the narrative fallacy. Our brains, he says, are basically anticipation machines. But to do their job, they have to simplify things. A lot. We take all the chaotic, messy, random facts of reality and we string them together into a nice, clean story that makes sense. It's a useful trick for understanding the past, but it's also incredibly dangerous because it fools us into thinking the world is much neater and more predictable than it actually is. And check this out. This slide is the perfect little proof. Just read that phrase on the screen quickly. Did you catch it? Most people don't see the extra "the." Why not? Because your brain is so desperate to see the familiar pattern, the neat little story it already knows, that it literally just edits reality and doesn't even tell you.
It throws out the messy detail, the extra word, to keep the story clean.
This brings us to a fantastic little story Taleb uses to illustrate two totally different ways of thinking. Imagine a coin has landed on heads 99 times in a row. What are the odds for the 100th flip? Well, you have Dr. John, the nerd. He thinks inside the box of his theories. He says 50%, because the textbook model says a fair coin has a 50-50 chance. He trusts the model. But then you have Fat Tony, the street smart guy. He thinks about the box. He says no more than 1%, because his real-world brain immediately assumes the model is wrong. The game has to be rigged. Dr. John is the turkey, trusting his past data. Fat Tony smells a black swan.
Okay, so we get it. The world is crazy unpredictable, and our brains are wired to ignore that fact. So, what are we supposed to do about it? How can we navigate this world? In other words, how can we be less of a turkey?
Let's start with a really powerful thought experiment from the book. I want you to imagine a politician who, on September 10th, 2001, somehow manages to pass a really expensive and unpopular law. And this law requires that all cockpit doors on every airplane have to be locked and bulletproof. So what happens? The very next day, the 9/11 hijackings are attempted, but they fail. The terrorists can't get into the cockpits. The disaster is completely averted. Thousands of lives are saved. So, is this politician a national hero? No. He's probably ridiculed as a fool who wasted everybody's time and money on a problem that never existed. Because the disaster never happened, his incredible success is completely and totally invisible. The point here is crucial. We build statues for the people who clean up messes, not for the silent heroes who prevent them.
This whole problem is what Taleb calls silent evidence. And this ancient story just captures it perfectly. A skeptic named Diagoras was shown a bunch of paintings of sailors who had prayed during a storm and survived a shipwreck. They were presented as proof of the god's power. His question was simple, but absolutely devastating. Where are the pictures of those who prayed then drowned? You see, we only ever see the success stories. We see the survivors. The failures, the alternative paths, the disasters that were quietly avoided, all of that evidence is silent. It's invisible.
So what can we actually do? Taleb offers some fascinating and pretty counterintuitive rules for living. First, always ask yourself, am I in predictable Mediocristan or unpredictable Extremistan? Second, and I love this one, he says we need to maximize our exposure to positive black swans. You know, the happy accidents. His advice? Go to parties. You never know who you might meet or what idea you might hear. Third, he suggests a barbell strategy. Be hyper-conservative with, say, 90% of your money or your effort, but then take a bunch of small, hyper-aggressive bets with the other 10%. This protects you from ruin, but still gives you a shot at some massive, unexpected win. Fourth, he has this motto: I don't run for trains. It's his way of rejecting the tyranny of a rigid schedule and embracing a little bit of harmless, everyday randomness. And finally, be deeply, radically skeptical of any so-called expert who tries to sell you a neat and tidy forecast of the future.
And this really leads us with one final and kind of haunting thought. The turkey made its fatal mistake because it only looked at its own personal, observed history. It couldn't see the silent evidence from the graveyard of all the other turkeys that came before it on Thanksgiving's past. And so the real challenge for us is to constantly be asking ourselves, what crucial knowledge, what vital warnings, and what unseen opportunities are hiding from my view in that vast, silent cemetery of history?